When creating a business, people wonder what kind of business entity they should create, either an LLC or a corporation. The answer is simple. It depends on what you're trying to do and what your use case is. In this video, I'm going to break down the difference between both using the example of a Swiss knife, a flexible everyday tool, and a scalpel, a precise surgery tool used by doctors. At the end of this video, you'll be able to tell which your business idea fits into and which will be most advantageous to what you're trying to do. Let's get started. A Swiss knife is a flexible, advantageous tool. Everybody can use it, and most people, or at least most men, have one. It's a tool that has a bottle opener, a wine opener, a corkscrew, a regular knife. It has a lot of different tools on it, which is what makes it very useful and very handy to have around. That's a Swiss knife. The scalpel, on the other hand, is a precise medical tool. Some people are trained to use it, named doctors, and they train for many years to be able to use it very accurately. It's very sharp, very short, and so it's only useful for a very specific use case, surgery. Now, a corporation will be akin to a scalpel. The corporation is good for what it's designed for, but it's not good for everything else. Specifically, it's good if you expect to have a large number of shareholders in the company. Why is this? The history of corporations go back hundreds of years because the governments realized that corporations typically had many shareholders, many of which the shareholders never interacted with the company for many years, because at the time there was no internet. You had to write a letter in hand and send it with a horse to get to where it needed to go. In order to protect the shareholders, the government had to create certain rules that they put together after many years to create a specific set of rules for corporations. So corporations typically have a lot of laws that govern them. There's a precise way to do everything, from issuing shares to shareholders, from setting up meeting times, board member meetings, shareholder meetings, what a quorum is, meaning how many people you need in a meeting for anything decided in the meeting to be binding on the corporation. All those are statutorily created, and you can amend some of them in your bylaws, which is the main governing document of the corporation. But a lot of these are created in statute to protect the shareholders. An LLC, on the other hand, is the most flexible tool ever. It's the Swiss knife of corporate entities, because with an LLC, you still have the advantage of protection, but it's a flexible vehicle. You could literally have one document that does everything. You can change a lot of the rules and regulations set up by the law that set it up without having any issues, which you can't do with a corporation. So why was an LLC necessary? The advantage of a corporation really was that as a shareholder, once you invest in a corporation and you own shares, that's the end of your liability. Meaning that if the corporation owes money to anybody else in the future, and that person comes to the corporation to collect, if the corporation doesn't have enough money to pay that individual, you do not personally owe that person any money. Once the corporation doesn't have anything, it can file for bankruptcy and say, we no longer have any money to pay this guy. And then the assets will be liquidated, and whatever is left will be paid to the creditor. But you personally do not have to put your hand into your pocket and pay the person. That was the advantage. Now, before LLCs existed, the only way you could have that advantage was to form a corporation. But think about it. The average person creating a business, a small business, wouldn't want to go through the tedious processes of the corporation, follow all those rules that have been set up for a corporation. And for a long period of time, one person couldn't create a corporation. So you could only register, for example, a doing business as name. And once you register that, if you get in trouble with a creditor in the future, you owe the creditor personally for anything that the business owes. So if your company or your business doesn't have the money to pay them, they can sue you personally and you'll pay them. And this, by the way, exists today for sole proprietorships, meaning you're running a business where you haven't registered the name. It exists for partnerships where two of you come together to do a business, but you haven't registered the business. Now that's different from a limited partnership. In a limited partnership, only the general partner that's the person who has the power to manage the business, personally owes for anything that the business does. The limited partners have limited liability and they do not personally owe anything from their pockets if anything goes wrong. To solve that problem, governments decided that they're going to create what is called an LLC. With an LLC, you have limited liability. You don't personally owe for anything that the company owes. So if anything goes wrong, you have to sue the LLC itself, and if it doesn't have any funds, the LLC files for bankruptcy. That's the advantage of an LLC. It's a flexible tool. Now, the LLC is so flexible that you could actually recreate the whole corporate structure using the LLC, and some businesses do that. I don't advise it because it's just a lot of work, and the money you are trying to save or whatever you're trying to save, you still end up paying it to lawyers to do it accurately. So it's better for you to just incorporate if that's what you want to do. So the LLC was created to give you that limited liability. Now, another advantage to the LLC is that you only get taxed once. Now, like I mentioned, the corporation is treated as a separate entity. So when the corporation makes money, the corporation gets taxed as an entity. The shareholders afterwards, after the corporation is taxed, the money, the profit from the corporation is divided to the shareholders, and then each shareholder still has to pay taxes as a person, personal income tax, separately. So if you count it, that money is taxed twice. It's taxed at the level of the corporation when the corporation pays for its profits, and then it's also taxed at the individual level when each shareholder gets those profits sent back to them. With an LLC, you get taxed directly. The IRS pretty much just disregards the LLC as an entity and looks straight at you. So if you're an individual, it's called a disregarded entity. They're looking straight at you. And if you are an LLC, they treat you more. If you're an LLC with more than one member, meaning that it's you and a buddy that started the company, then you'll be treated as a partnership. Like I mentioned, partnerships go directly to you, right? So you have to personally pay the taxes on behalf of the corporation, on behalf of the LLC. The advantage to that is you're only taxed once. You don't have to pay double taxes. So once the money comes through from the LLC, comes directly to you, you have to pay. Now, why don't many people who start corporations just do this? If you think about it, they'll save a lot of money. The reason is, with corporations, it allows them to control when they pay taxes. The corporation, when it receives the money in profits, pays taxes on their profits. But that means that the shareholder doesn't have to worry about when they have to pay taxes. They just don't. Because if no money is sent back to them afterwards, then they don't have to pay any taxes, right? So it allows the shareholders to those who don't want to be too much involved in the business, or foreigners who don't want to pay US taxes, they can just live their life, and then the corporation handles everything that has to do with the tax. It kind of creates that blocker between both of them. But if you're the LLC, the moment the LLC itself makes money, you personally owe the IRS taxes on that money. They don't want to know whether you actually paid yourself that money, because some companies, when they make money, instead of paying the owners of the company, they reinvest back into the company. Yeah, the IRS doesn't want to know. The moment you owe them that money, you owe them the money. So you got to pay taxes on it, even if you don't have the cash. That's the disadvantage. So if you really think about it, like I mentioned, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to create a company that would one day grow to be $1 billion company with thousands of investors in it, then a corporation is a good way to go. But if you're running your business, a small business, or you may think someday it may get to that point where you need to incorporate, but right now it doesn't, then you can chill and create an LLC. You have a lot of flexibility. You don't have to worry about too many laws once you understand the few mechanics and mechanisms that go with the LLC. And it makes everything easier for you. You run your LLC, and when you get to that point where you think you want to take in an investor from outside, the investor typically will request that you create a corporation, because again, they are used to the structure already. They know what to expect. They know how they're protected. So they'll typically ask you to create a corporation. If you are in a tech startup, that's how the tech ecosystem works. But for many other kinds of businesses, the investor may not care. They may still invest in you as an LLC. I hope this helped answer a lot of questions that you have. If you have any more questions, leave a comment in the comment section and I'll get to them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.